Thanks, Misty, and welcome everybody to our webinar today on File Sync, which is all about migrating, collaborating, and backing up of your construction data. Now, just to set the scene quickly, over the past few years, we've seen an exponential rise in software applications available. And this has been great on one side. It gives us the tools that we need to do a job. But on the other side, it can cause a bit of a headache, trying to get these systems to talk to one another, trying to share information in order to make decisions, and so on. In fact, when you look at some of these challenges in industry, they're quite alarming. 54% of construction projects experience delays due to poor data integration. 52% of construction professionals cite a lack of real-time data as a major hurdle to making those important decisions. And roughly 20%, the average decrease in productivity resulting from insufficient data and file collaboration. That's why we're here today to talk about GRAITEC File Sync. And we've been running these webinars now every month. When we're talking about GRAITEC File Sync, we're really looking at three core use cases. Whether we want to migrate some data, whether we want to collaborate on data, or whether we want to back up, mirror, or copy that data. So I'm going to delve into each one of those in a little bit more detail. Now, the webinar today is based on this point, migrate. And the best scenario to think of here is you've just purchased the Autodesk Construction Cloud, or you're thinking about purchasing the Autodesk Construction Cloud. And you may have a requirement to get all of your data, your files that may be currently sat on the server or in SharePoint into your new Autodesk environment. Not only do you want to move the files, but you may have a need to preserve some of that critical metadata that you've created in the existing system. So how do you bring that across into the Autodesk Construction Cloud in a seamless way that minimizes downtime? And a little bit later on, Stuart's going to show you how we do exactly that. The next case is all around collaboration. Now, you may have a requirement to improve not only internal collaboration, but external collaboration across key stakeholders and across key platforms used. This helps to improve efficiency. But more importantly, when we're sharing this information with people within our organization or outside, it's important that they're getting access to the latest version of that information. So let's take the Autodesk Construction Cloud as an example, where we have quite a few employees working, but we also have a few employees sat outside of that, still using Windows, still perhaps maybe using SharePoint, don't necessarily have access to that cloud platform, Autodesk Construction Cloud. How do you get that information across to them so that they can collaborate on it, make any decisions, and even put that information back into the Autodesk environment? And then the final example is backing up, copying, or mirroring that data, which is arguably the lion's share of where we see File Sync being used today. You may have a requirement that you want to protect that critical project data in case of any accidental deletion, any corruption, or system failures. This helps us to reduce that downtime, reduce that risk, but more importantly, if the worst were to happen, maintain business continuity and ultimately give you peace of mind. We support a wide range of systems through File Sync today, from the Autodesk Construction Cloud, BIM 360, Procore, SharePoint, Windows, Bluebeam, OneDrive, and Ignite. And the system really is easy and intuitive to use. It's about creating those connections to these systems, easily configuring what you want to sync, when you want to sync it, and then letting the File Sync application do the work for you in the background so you can assign your time to more important tasks. Now, the benefits are quite clear. We're connecting those systems, and as we presented in that slide earlier on, there's quite a few systems out there in the marketplace. How do we help to improve communication across those systems? By connecting these systems, we're helping to automate a process, which typically, when we look at that process today, is quite manual. It means somebody has to go in, find the project, download the project, re-upload that project. That all takes unnecessary time. We're improving that communication, we're improving that collaboration. And then with those backups, should the worst happen, we have that business continuity and peace of mind. Quick reference from a customer of ours using File Sync for the purpose of backing up. I won't read all of that, but just to highlight, a point there that they make in eliminating the tedious manual process of accessing and moving information individually. Let GRAITEC File Sync take that burden, take the heavy lifting off your shoulders. So I'm now going to pass you over to my colleague, Stuart Smith. Today's webinar is a short webinar focusing on the point of migration. But if you do have any questions regarding some of the other elements, you want to delve a little bit deeper into the collaborate side or the backup side, just let us know and we'll happily jump on a call after this and cover that in a bit more detail. So Stuart, over to you.
Thanks, Gary. So we're going to go through two use cases framed around what Gary mentioned in the previous slides. In this first example, we want to migrate an entire project from SharePoint to Autodesk Docs. We want to run that migration after hours to minimize disruption. We also want to be able to sync any new or modified files that are being created within SharePoint. It could be the case that we're migrating over a period of time, and it could take these days or weeks before we have the users transitioned to Docs. And additionally, we want to be able to sync and preserve some of the rich information that we have in SharePoint, the metadata. So let's take a look at what we're going to sync. In this example, as I say, we're going from SharePoint and we have a project that we would like to sync. And in Autodesk Docs, we already have an empty project to synchronize to. Looking back in SharePoint, we can see we have a host of folders and files and metadata. So whether you've got text-based metadata or lists or numerical values, we can start to synchronize and migrate this information to ensure that we have a more complete migration of your data. So let's jump into File Sync and start syncing. It's simple. It's a three-step process. The first thing is creating connections to the systems that you want to sync with. So we're going to connect to Autodesk Build, and we just use our intuitive authentication tool, just following the prompts, providing our credentials, and then finally authorizing the app to use that account. And we respect the permissions of the Autodesk platform, which means we can only see the projects you have access to and the folders. So with that, our connection's created. We can add additional detail. Maybe we want the location of this particular hub. And we already have our SharePoint connection in place, so we can start syncing. So the second step is to create a workspace. So with a workspace, it's just for storing our sync configurations, but also for setting up automation. So within the workspace, we can set up a schedule. So one of the requirements was running out of hours. We could set the schedule to run daily, weekly, or custom. So we could be more selective about the days or potentially have syncs that run more frequently. We also have the email notification, so we can set notifications on specific sync tasks. The last step is creating the sync itself. So in this example, we're going from SharePoint. We can choose the project within SharePoint that we want to sync from. We can use our filters to quickly search for the relevant project and then specify the folder. So we could choose to sync the entire project or be targeted, like in this example. And we can then set parameters like include subfolders and our new feature include metadata, where it will allow us to see all of the available custom attributes. And we could choose to deselect or re-enable certain attributes we want to sync. Additionally, we have the ability to sync metadata from an Excel or CSV file. So if that information doesn't exist in your SharePoint, but in another location, we can do it that way. All we need to do at that point is set the destination. As we said in the example, we've already got a project in place. We just need to tell it where we want to sync to. And then we can set parameters. So we can do things like an incremental copy, which means if we run it multiple times, it will only copy new or modified files. If we wanted to have an exact mirror of our source, we can delete files and folders. And if we want to capture changes, we can enable versioning. So this will version files at the destination based on changes at the source. So with that all in place, we could wait for the schedule to kick in, or we can run on demand. So we have the ability to run a sync, and we can monitor that activity from within the application. So this activity page is just a real-time view of what's happening. And then you'll see on the right within Autodesk Docs, it's just replicating what we see in the activity, creating the folders and the files that we specified. So as we start to populate these folders with files, we'll be able to go into one of those folders and start to view the metadata. So we can see information like the title and document type that has been specified in SharePoint by a user or set of users is being synchronized across. So we're getting that accurate migration of data. So once the sync completes, we'll get a notification. And if we've got email enabled, we'll also receive an email. And if we view docs in a larger view, we can get a better view of all of this metadata and files that have been synchronized from SharePoint. So we've been able to leverage File Sync to sync an entire project, sync all the files for that project, along with all of the metadata that's being utilized in the SharePoint platform to Autodesk Docs. And if you go next slide, Gary. And then in this next example, so as good as all of these platforms are, we see that our customers want to secure their data locally on servers for various reasons, IP standards that they're working to. And we can do that within File Sync. So in this example, we want to automatically back up cloud projects to a Windows platform. It could be a network share. We want to customize this backup to filter out anything that is deemed unnecessary. And we also want to ensure this backup is an exact mirror of the cloud project as it is today. And again, we can do this in File Sync. So in this example, we're looking at Autodesk Docs on the left, and you'll see we've got a folder that we're viewing that has zip files in. We want to back up that entire project to our Windows server where we've got a share. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up a filter to filter out unnecessary files like the zip, but we want to capture the entire project. And we actually have potentially other projects that we also want to back up as part of this process. You'll also notice at the destination, we've already got a backup, but it doesn't currently match what we have in our source system, Autodesk Docs. So what we'll see as we start to configure the sync is we can set it up to mirror, which will clean up that backup directory. So same as before, let's jump into File Sync. We've already got our connections, so we can just go ahead and create a new workspace. Same as before, if we want to be able to automate the process, we can set up a schedule. And if we want to keep informed if there are any errors, we can set up our notifications. So in this example, we could set up a weekly schedule, running it out of hours, and enable notifications when a sync runs into a problem or when it completes. Final step is again to create a sync. We choose our source. And in this example, we can actually do multi-selection. So this allows us to select more than one project. So we could select all, or if we want to be targeted, we can search for the projects that we need to back up. We can then show all of the selected projects. We can then set all the parameters. So we want to include subfolders. We also need to filter some documents out that we deem unnecessary. We mentioned that we want to exclude zip files. So these filters can be customized. You can add your own categories and your own file types. We then choose our destination, specify our network share that we're going to be backing up to, and then set our parameters. So same as before, we're doing an incremental copy, but we also want it to be an exact mirror of what's happening in the source projects, so we can delete files and folders. As with the previous statement, we can wait for the schedule to kick in or once again run on demand. Let's put File Sync on the left and let's run this on demand. As I said before, we've already got a project that's backed up, but it is not an exact match of what we have in Autodesk Docs. So when we run this sync, you'll see that it will clean up the files and folders to match the source. So there we can see in the backup, folders have been cleaned up and it starts backing up the relevant files and folders. If we go into this BIM folder, you can see all of the zip files have been excluded. So we've excluded anything that's unnecessary. And if we go up a couple of levels, we can start to see it's moved on to the next project. So it will start to synchronize these projects. And we can run these simultaneously as well. So we could back up. As we back up, it will start syncing all the projects at the same time. Now, all of the syncs that we run, we keep a record of. So we have logs within File Sync. Every sync that's ever been run is captured in here. They're also accessible in JSON format, so you can access the individual log files, but it provides feedback on the number of files that it's synced, the size of the package, information on where it went from and to, the folders that we utilized, and the time it took. And we can also look at the logs in detail. So if we run into any issues or we just want to check what's been backed up, we can look at the logs and we can also apply a filter. In this example, I potentially want to just check if there were any errors, although we would have been notified and we will see that in the status. Filter that down. So it's just giving you the ability to view the information that's important to you.